Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the new Predator Badlands movie that came out in theaters. I saw it. I enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it. Let's dive into this, shall we?
Modern movie review.
Okay, so I do want to go ahead and start off with my spoiler-free thoughts and just kind of talk about some of the things that I really liked about this film overall, because I had very low expectations going into this movie. I just saw the visual effects and I've seen the trailer a couple of times and I was like, you know what? I want to see this in a theater. This looks like the kind of movie you should see in a theater. And boy, was I right. The action sequences are absolutely phenomenal in this movie. I think that the visual effects are beautiful. We go to multiple very interesting planets. The one that we spend the majority of the time on in this movie is a planet called Jenna, and I think the way that they do the world building in this planet is really cool. There's a lot of creatures, and it's kind of like every single thing on the planet is out to get you, and I think that that's really cool. I love whenever there's a sci-fi epic where my character is just like walking around and then all of a sudden he realizes, oh my god, this thing that I'm standing on is a creature, and oh, that tree is a creature and it's trying to kill me, and oh, this thing is out here and it's trying to kill me. And I think that this movie did a really good job with that. The world of Jenna is absolutely fantastic. I think it's a very immersive setting for this film, and I think it's really cool. I like the fact that a lot of the elements that we get of this world comes back later in the film. I think that it's so rare for a movie to use its setting as well as this movie does. I think that this movie does an incredible job of it not just being like, hey, this is where the movie takes place, but also all of the lessons that the characters learn are because of this planet. All of the weapons that he uses for the final building are literally things that he gets from this setting, and I think that it's really cool. I really like this film. I think that something else about this movie that is really interesting before I dive into the spoilers, the buddy interactions between Elle Fanning and the Yachita, the main character deck here that we're following, is absolutely hilarious. It's phenomenal. I am the kind of person where when I go to see an action movie, I expect like one or two funny moments throughout the entire film. I want to say I was laughing for a solid like 30 minutes of this film. It's absolutely fantastic. It's not like over the top humor. It's not going to be like slapstick. It's not going to be too many like jokes and one liners and stuff like that. A lot of it is just like perfectly timed responses where the Yachita is reacting like completely seriously to something that's supposed to be like a little silly or stuff like that. And I think they do a really good job of balancing the humor with it actually having emotional conversations within the moments that are pretty funny. So I really liked it. I think it was really cool. But now to dive into some of the spoilery side of things, if you haven't seen this movie, I would definitely recommend going and checking it out. It's really great. The sound design is incredible. All the creatures look phenomenal. The overarching story, I think, is really interesting. I think Dan Datchenberg did a really good job of taking a franchise like Predator, which is very basic, just okay, here's this cool thing, watch it fight, and fleshing it out and making it very nuanced. And I think that's really cool. So we're gonna dive into that. And like I said, if you haven't seen the movie, you might want to scroll away. But if you have, feel free to stay and let's dive into this, shall we? So part of the reason I wanted to give a spoiler warning is because I want to talk about the opening of this film, and I think that the opening of this film is something that is absolutely fantastic, and it is something that if you go into the movie without knowing this is gonna happen, it's a really like tough way to open the movie. And they set it up. There's like a solid like 20 minutes where we're getting introduced to the main Yachita that we're following. Also, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I'm so sorry. I was trying to like make sure to like research certain things and make sure I'm saying things correctly. That is a tough one. That is a hard one to say. But we're following the original Yakuza that we're following, and we're seeing him interacting with his brother, and they're kind of having like a chill moment where they're just being bros and they're fighting each other and they're training each other and they're spending time together. And it's kind of very interesting because for the most part, when we think of the predators, we think of them just constantly kill, 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 always on the hunt. And so seeing them more like chilled and laid back and just having moments interacting with each other and kind of being more like humanized, I thought was really interesting. And we get this moment where the brother is kind of explaining to our main protagonist that, hey, it's a part of our Yachita code. You have to be strong. You have to be tougher. You should never yield. You always have to keep fighting. And if you want to be stronger, if you want to get your cloak, if you want to officially become a member of the Yakuta clan, you have to do this big hunt. And he's kind of hyping up to his brother that like, hey, you need to go on the hunt. You got to go kill something. You got to bring back the skull. This is, part of their code. It's very interesting. I like the story building and the world building here because, from my understanding, I've only seen a couple of the Predator movies. I've seen Prey and I've seen Predator Killer of Killers, which are all the Dan Datzenberg ones, which are the newer ones, and I'm really liking them. I think they're super cool, and I like the fact that we're kind of fleshing out these characters because, for the most part, Predator has always been very simple and basic, and I think that getting to actually like humanize them and see the characters and kind of getting into some of the science behind it is really interesting because the Predator series could be an incredible sci-fi if they dive into like the technology they use is really really cool, really really advanced. It's awesome. So somewhere they have to have some engineers and some really smart people, which I think would be really cool to dive into because a big part of the Yachita clan is always like they're just meatheads. They need to kill everything. They need to be the strongest. They need to be the toughest. They have to fight, and they constantly are talking about weaknesses and like empathy is a weakness, and using your brain is a weakness. But it's like also at the same time they have these really high tech weapons, and that's kind of weird. Anyway, it's not the point. I'm getting so off topic, but we spend some time with the brother and our main character here, and we kind of get this like sense that they stick out for one another and they're constantly there for each other. They're always having each other's back. And in the Yachita clan, they don't like that. Like I just said, they think empathy is a weakness. They think that trying to work with somebody is a weakness because the Yachita hunt alone. And that's something I think is like so interesting. And to get more on the like nuance side of things, I'm gonna get to that in a second. Okay, I need to finish this opening thing, but basically we spend a lot of time with this main Yachita and his brother. We have this really nice connection, this bond that's really cool. And then their father comes home, and it gets revealed that the brother was sent there to kill our main Yachita, and he was supposed to kill him. He was supposed to end his life because he's weak, and they think that he's like damaging the cull or the cull. Is that it? I feel like that's wrong, but the clan, they think that he's very weak and that he needed to be killed off. But the brother, like I said, is sticking up for this other brother. They have this brotherly bond. It's really sweet. And he thinks that he at least deserves a hunt. So he sticks his neck on the line and he literally dies. The father kills Deck's brother. It's a very emotional start to the movie. It does a really good job of instantly getting us like involved in this Deck character and wanting to see him succeed a little bit more because the only person who's ever believed in him and the only person who's ever stood up for him just died in front of him, and that was great. That was a beautiful way to start this film, and I think that it was incredible, and I absolutely loved it because then we immediately get thrown onto an alien planet where everything's foreign, everything is trying to kill Deck, and he needs to go and like survive. And we actually have this emotional connection to him because of everything we just saw with his brother, which I thought was awesome. I thought they did a really good job of that. But now, to talk about the nuances, because this is something that I really wanted to get on, which I think is really interesting. This movie is a social commentary on toxic masculinity, and I think that anybody who can't see that potentially like is on the side of social media where they're constantly seeing red pill content or they're constantly like, oh my god, I need to be an alpha male or I need to be a sigma male and oh my god this and oh my god that. I think that this movie does a great job with that, and it also shows just like overall how stupid it is because they're like, oh, it's a weakness to stand up for one another. It's a weakness to stay with this other guy. We hunt alone, but also they're a clan. They're a clan, and at the end of the movie, there's a scene where Deck has to face off against a couple of the members of the clan, and it's like they're working together then, but that's acceptable. That's okay because they're part of the clan. But like, no, he and his brother are working together at the beginning of the movie, and that's a weakness. They can't possibly work together. But it's okay when the adults, do it because they're more manly. And I think that that's just like such like a funny thing that toxic masculinity is constantly just a problem where it comes where it's like, how do I say that? It's an oxymoron. A lot of times it'll be super hypocritical. They'll be like, "Oh well, being a man means doing this," and then they'll actively do the opposite of that. But they'll tell you that you're not a man unless you're doing things this specific way, and they're constantly just trying to put you in a box and they're trying to tell you that this is how you need to live your life. And it's wrong. It's just absolutely terrible. Life is 10 times more enjoyable if you are open with your emotions. If you're willing to work with other people, you can get a lot more done. And I think that it's really interesting that we send Deck on this journey, and he starts off with this mindset that's very Yakshitan and very toxic masculine, which is, I need to do this alone. I got to do this alone. I have to kill literally everything in my sight. I need to be the most superior. And how do you be the most superior? You kill everything. And then they literally give us this perfect analogy of the wolf pack and how the alpha wolf isn't the person who kills the most, but the person who supports their team the most. And I think that that's like a great representation of what positive masculinity is. And I think that the way that they turn the Yachita of being alone, have to be the most deadly, have to be the best at literally everything, and flip it on its head with a wolf pack where you want to work more as a team player is so interesting. And the way that this movie ends with Deck creating his own clan and deciding that he's going to work with people now, and the way that he slowly learns with Ella Fanning's character and the introduction of Bud, that you can do better when you have a team, because sometimes your weaknesses can be, really, really bad, and it can knock you down. And when you're by yourself and you have this really bad weakness, it's unguarded. Like, there's nobody there who has your back. There's nobody who can cover that spot for you. Whereas now he has a team. He has, this synthoid Elle Fanning character. He has the Bud character who is very tough and can like survive the saw blade grass and some of the like weirder terrain that we see in this movie. And now they're able to work together. And instead of having all these weaknesses, they're now positives. And I like the way that this movie really puts emphasis on he's the runt of the litter. He has all these weaknesses, but those weaknesses are actually what makes him stronger. And it's so smart. It's so creative. It's so clever. And it's one of those things where it's like on paper, it looks super basic. It seems like a why is this groundbreaking? Why is this revolutionary? But because it's a Predator movie. And the Predator movies are constantly doing the opposite of this. And I think that Dan Datzenberg is just absolutely fantastic with his story writing here. I think it's really great. I think that everything's super nuanced. I think that the final battle, all throughout this movie, Deck is slowly learning more and more about the planet that he's on with the help of Thea, which is Ella Fanning's character's name, and he's constantly learning like, oh, this specific plant is really good for neutralizing people. They have like trank darts basically. We have these caterpillars that explode every once in a while. We have these electric eels that shoot acid spit, and he's slowly learning all these different things about them and how to like befriend these creatures and potentially work with them as opposed to working against them. And he his final suit up montage of him putting together a bunch of things from this new planet that he's been spending all this time on and learning how to use all of them to his advantage is so sick. It is insanely cool. And I think that it goes to show that sometimes brains is better than bronze, and it's just phenomenal. So overall, I really love this movie. I did not talk a lot about the main antagonist because I think the main antagonist is very boring and basic, and it's not really one of the more interesting things about the movie. But that being said, just because a movie has a bad antagonist doesn't mean the movie's bad. I think that this movie is absolutely phenomenal for all these reasons I just mentioned, and I think that the action is phenomenal. No amount of me hyping up the action is going to do it justice. It just is fantastic. It is so good. Dan Mattenberg does such an incredible job of, I want to say, also just showing scale whenever there's action sequences, because constantly the predator that we're following is like significantly smaller than these beasts and these monsters that he's fighting. And so they'll show a lot of angles where it's like, here's our little predator guy, here's the guy he's fighting against, and it does a really good job of staying on ground level with him. And then we'll see this bigger thing that is towering over him, and we're seeing things eye level with the predator that's significantly smaller. And it makes just for such an immersive experience. It really is absolutely captivating. I love this film. I love the action. I think Dan Trachtenberg killed it. So if I had to give this movie a rating on a scale of 1 to 100, give it a grade, I'm giving it a solid 93 out of 100. This is an incredible action movie. I think the action and adventure elements to it are absolutely phenomenal. I like the fact that this is like a family appropriate movie. Like, there are 10-year-old boys who can go see this movie and will absolutely love it. And I think that that's awesome. I think that the Predator franchise constantly being rated R, and the fact that there's a lot of Predator fans who are whining about this movie being PG-13, I think is clever. I think it's really awesome. And I think that it's really great to broaden the horizons and broaden the audience for these movies because they are fantastic. And the way that Dan Trachtenberg is directing and writing these stories, I think it is important for young men to watch these and see that sometimes being stronger means being more willing to work with other people, being cooperative with other people, and taking the advice of a woman. Because a lot of the strongest men in history and just in life in general are people who have brilliant women to support them. And I think that that's a really important thing and an important lesson that a lot of young boys need to learn because for some reason in today's society and today's media, there's a constant battle of like guys versus girls. And oh my God, guys need to, girls are only a distraction to men and they need to get in the gym and they need to do this, they need to do that. They can't possibly have a woman that's supportive of them. And then there's also like a lot of like women hating men and stuff like that. And we got to break that societal norm that's kind of starting to set in place. I think that this movie will be great for young men coming up to learn women are super helpful. You want to surround yourself with other people. Going and asking for help is okay. And it is very, very strong to support people that are weaker than you. So I really love this movie. I thought it was phenomenal. I definitely recommend going and checking it out. But that being said, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.